Okay, we talked a little bit about solving one-step equations, and one of the questions that usually comes up is, what do I do when I see a fraction? Okay, fractions can be scary unless we know how to handle them. So my job today is to show you, what do I do when I'm solving and I run into a fraction? A fraction could look like x divided by 2 equals 12. What we see right here is a fraction, and what we know that is happening is we're dividing. And we've talked when we're solving that we're trying to undo what is actually happening. Okay, we're trying to work backwards here. So if they're dividing by 2, it makes sense that we should multiply by 2 in order to get rid of this 2 that we're dividing by. Okay, what we do to one side of the equal sign, we must do to the other. So I'll go ahead and multiply by 2 on the right side. Okay, and what we've talked about before is this makes this power 1. Okay, it makes where I have the same number on top of my fraction as I have on the bottom of my fraction, which means there is 1. It's a whole. It's a whole. Okay, so what that allows me to do is drop my variable by itself. What I see here is 1x. Okay, only 1x. So I'm going to drop that x, and I get to bring down 12 times 2, which is 24. Okay, so that's not too scary, and that's one type of fraction that we see. But what if instead of writing x divided by 2, okay, what if instead of that they write 1/2 x? How do I handle that? And so our job today is to figure out that this 1/2 x is exactly the same thing as this x divided by 2. Exactly the same thing. It's just a different way of representing the same information. Okay, just another way to write it. So the idea here is still to come up with the power 1. Okay, we still need only 1x. Well, over here, I was able to put a 2 on top, and that eliminated the 2 on bottom. They canceled each other out. I want to do the same thing here. I need to come up with a 2 on top. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to multiply by this fraction upside down. Okay, multiply by this fraction upside down. And what I do to one side, I want to do to the other. I know that 2 over 1 can also be represented as just 2, just a whole number. Okay, and what happens here? What happens in this fraction business? Well, if I were to go ahead and multiply this out, I would see that I have 2 over times 1 divided by 1 times 2, which is still 2 over 2x. Okay, on the right side, that's going to be 12 times 2, which is 24. And look, there's the 1 that I was looking for. It looks just like this 1. Okay, there's the 1 I was looking for. It's 1x. Okay, so that still works. X equals 24. Okay, so what is this business where we multiply by this fraction upside down? Okay, if you're taking notes, we're going to write something down here. When I divide by a fraction, comma, I actually multiply by the reciprocal. What reciprocal means is upside down. Okay, you're going to flip that fraction upside down. That's what that means. So when I divide by a fraction, I actually multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so let's see what that means. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so if I were to say 2/3, there's a fraction, don't be scared. 2/3 of x is 6. 2/3 of x is 6. We've talked before about when I don't see a symbol in between a number and a letter. I don't see anything here. That means that we're multiplying. Okay, there's no plus sign, there's no minus sign, there's no symbol at all. It just means that I'm multiplying. So naturally, the thing to do here would be to get rid of x. To get rid of the number. Okay, get rid of whatever I'm multiplying by here. Let's say I have 2x equals 4. okay? Just for example, I don't see any number, I don't see any symbol in between 2 and x. So naturally my thought would be divide by 2, and I've solved the problem, right? When I see multiply, I want to divide. Go back over here. When I see multiply, I want to divide. Now we understand that when I divide by a fraction, I'm actually multiplying by the reciprocal. Because to go over here and to say divide by 2/3 on both sides, divide by 2/3, that's going to be some math that I'm not kind of capable of handling in my head. Okay, it looks good. It looks like this is going to cancel out with this. But that's not really how we want to go about this on paper. So when I divide by a fraction, instead of just straight dividing like I just showed you, what we actually want to do is multiply by the reciprocal, okay? Just like we did here. Multiply by that fraction upside down. All right, so let's look at that here. If I were to multiply by this fraction upside down, that's going to be 3 divided by 2. Okay, so I'm multiplying by this fraction upside down. And I want to do that on both sides. 3 divided by 2. Okay, so what happens here? Well, I multiply across the top and across the bottom. 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 3 is 6. There's my power 1. So essentially, these things canceled each other out because they're the same on the top as they were on the bottom. Mission accomplished. Okay, what happened on the left, on the right side? Well, I've got 6, maybe over 1. Maybe if I put that over 1, I can multiply it by a fraction better. 6 times 3 is 18. 1 times 2 is 2. So really I've got x equals 18 divided by 2. 18 divided by 2. If I reduce that fraction, x is 9. Okay, x equals 9. Final answer there. Final answer there. Okay, I'm going to mark this out because we weren't actually using that. All right, so x equals 9. Now let's check it. That means that I need to be able to plug 9 back into my original equation in place of x, and I should get the same answer. Okay, so 2/3 of x, which is 9, should equal 6. We're going to see if it works. Again, maybe I should slide this 9 over 1. That way I can multiply by this fraction. So 2 times 9, that's 18. 3 times 1, that's 3. Is 18 divided by 3 6? Yes, it is. So we're good. Final answer, x equals 9. Okay, x equals 9. All right, let's look at one more. One more here. Let's say 4/5 of x, okay, 4/5 of x equals 8. 4/5 of x equals 8. Automatically, I feel like I should divide by this fraction. But I know when I divide by a fraction, I actually multiply by the reciprocal, which means I'm going to multiply by the upside down version on both sides of equals. Okay. Again, if I were to multiply across here and across here, I would get 20 divided by 20, which is my power 1. So I know that's the case. I'm going to go ahead and just cancel all of these numbers out. That leaves me x by itself. Okay, now I can multiply 8 over 1 times 5/4. 8 times 5 is 40. 1 times 4 is 4. 40 divided by 4 is going to give me x equals 10. X equals 10. Final answer. So is 4/5 of 10 8? Let's check it. 4 times 10 is 40. 5 times 1 is 5. And 40 divided by 5. 40 divided by 5 is